The first thing the cadets learned at the Galactic Academy was how to recognize danger. It was not written in the official manuals. There was no lecture about it, no exam. But every species carried instinct with them, millions of years of evolution whispering warnings in the back of their minds. Some creatures radiated threat. Armored species moved with heavy confidence. Predators watched everything without turning their heads. Venomous beings triggered immediate caution. Even herbivores from high-gravity worlds inspired respect simply because of their size. Everyone knew who to avoid. Everyone knew who not to provoke. Except when it came to humans. Humans were confusing. They had no natural armor, no visible weapons, no claws, no fangs worth mentioning. Soft skin, forward-facing eyes that looked almost harmless compared to true predators. Their bodies were small by galactic standards, fragile-looking, unimpressive, at least on the surface. The Academy files classified Earth as a Level 4 deathworld. Dangerous, yes, but not exceptional. There were far worse environments in known space. Planets where the air itself dissolved organic tissue, worlds where gravity crushed bone, ecosystems built entirely around predation. Compared to those places, Earth sounded almost gentle. Blue oceans, green continents, moderate gravity, predictable seasons. Even the term death world felt exaggerated. Many cadets quietly suspected humans had labeled their own planet that way out of pride or insecurity, or both. And that misunderstanding started everything. Her name was Lena Mercer. Human, first-year cadet. She rarely spoke. She arrived early to every lecture and left immediately after. Never lingered, never joined conversations, never volunteered answers. She always chose the same seat, back row, left side, close enough to the exit to leave without drawing attention. The instructors appreciated students like her. Quiet, disciplined, reliable, invisible. The cadets did not, because invisibility made an easy target. At first, the attention she received was harmless, or at least it seemed that way. Curiosity was natural. Humans were still relatively new members of the Federation. Many species had never seen one in person before. They asked questions. Too many questions. Is it true your species fights each other for entertainment? How many predators live on your world? Why don't humans have defensive plating? Do you molt? How long can you survive without medical support? Some questions were genuine, others were not. Lena answered politely when she answered at all. Short responses, neutral tone, no emotion. Eventually, the novelty faded. But the reputation remained. The quiet human, the harmless one, the small one, the cute one. The word spread through the cadet dormitories. Not in cruelty at first, more like a joke. Have you seen the human? She looks like a juvenile of a proper species. She's barely half my mass. I think my clutchmate could carry her. Someone once described her as a companion animal that learned to walk upright. The description stuck. Lena never responded, not once. She walked the same routes through the corridors every day, dormitory to lecture halls to mess hall back to dormitory. Predictable, regular, safe, or so the others believed. The first physical contact happened in a hallway between classes. Crowded, no instructor present, perfect conditions for a minor incident. A cadet from a heavy-gravity world brushed past her shoulder harder than necessary, enough to make her stumble. She caught herself against the wall. The cadet did not apologize. He did not even look back. His companions laughed, quietly, just enough to be heard. Lena straightened, adjusted the strap of her satchel, continued walking. After that, it became easier. One push led to another, then another, always small, always deniable, nothing serious enough to report. Nothing obvious enough to punish, just enough to test limits, just enough to establish hierarchy. And Lena never reacted. Not anger, not fear, not even irritation, just silence, which encouraged them more than resistance ever could, because resistance meant strength. Silence meant weakness, or so they thought. The second week of the term, someone moved her chair before lecture, just a few centimeters, barely noticeable. When she sat down, it shifted and scraped loudly against the floor. Heads turned. Several cadets snickered. She simply repositioned it and opened her notes. No reaction. Later that day, someone hid her data tablet. Not stolen, just relocated. Placed on a high storage rack near the rear wall of the training hall, too high for her to reach comfortably. Several cadets watched from across the room, waiting. She found it within minutes, looked up at the shelf, measured the distance with her eyes, then dragged a nearby equipment crate into position, climbed, retrieved the tablet, returned the crate exactly where it had been, walked away. No comment, no accusation, no visible annoyance. That was when the tone began to change, because she did not resist, and she did not complain, which meant the boundaries could move further. They started blocking her path in corridors, standing too close, forcing her to slow down, making her step aside. Sometimes they pretended not to notice her at all. Sometimes they smiled while doing it. Always small, always controlled, always safe, because no one actually believed the human could be dangerous, except the instructors, though they never explained why. Several times during physical training sessions, Lena was assigned separate exercise parameters, lower impact drills, independent stations, modified sparring routines. The other cadets assumed it was accommodation, protection for a weaker species. No one questioned it, except one instructor who watched her more closely than the others, Sergeant Velk. Veteran of 3 Federation campaigns, scarred plating, clouded eye. He rarely spoke unnecessarily, but he always watched Lena during training, always. Once, during endurance drills, a cadet collapsed from heat stress. Medical staff responded immediately. Training halted. Most cadets rested where they stood. Lena remained upright, breathing evenly, sweat darkening the collar of her uniform. Sergeant Velk approached, studied her for several seconds, then said quietly, "Hydrate." She nodded, drank from her canteen. He lingered a moment longer, then moved on. Later that day, another instructor asked him, "Is the human struggling?" Velk answered without hesitation, "No." "Then why separate drills?" A pause. Then, "Because she follows instructions." The explanation satisfied no one, but no one pressed further. The cadets developed their own explanation. Humans were fragile. Humans needed supervision. Humans required special handling. Humans were safe targets. And Lena Mercer remained quiet. Day after day, week after week, until the incident in Training Hall 7. Training Hall 7 was large enough for multiple squads. Open floor, reinforced walls, observation platforms above, no permanent staff presence between scheduled sessions, which made it ideal for unofficial activities and unofficial lessons. Lena entered exactly on schedule, same time as always, same path, same equipment. 3 cadets were already waiting, not by coincidence. They spread out slowly as she approached, casually, blocking the central walkway, not aggressively, just enough, just deliberate enough. The largest of them stepped forward, mass easily twice hers, dense musculature adapted to heavy gravity, thick dermal ridges along the forearms, harmless in controlled sparring, intimidating everywhere else. He smiled, not kindly. "You walk this route every day, human?" No response. She stopped a few steps away, waiting. He tilted his head. "You don't talk much?" Silence. Another cadet moved behind her, close enough to prevent easy retreat, still smiling, still relaxed, still certain. The large cadet stepped closer, too close, close enough that she would have to lean back to maintain space. "You know what we call you, Silence." He tapped one finger lightly against her shoulder, not hard, not violent, just possession. "We call you cute." Laughter behind her, soft, confident, Safe. He gave her a small push, barely enough to shift her weight. She stepped back once, regained balance, straightened, looked up, and for the first time since arriving at the academy, Lena Mercer raised her eyes. They were calm, clear, focused, not frightened, not angry, just attentive, like someone evaluating a problem. Then she spoke. For the first time, her voice was quiet, even, controlled. "Do you want me to stop holding back?" The laughter started immediately, loud, unrestrained, almost relieved. "You're holding back from what you more laughter." The big cadet leaned closer, grinning. "Show us." Lena watched him for several seconds, not moving, not blinking. Then she said calmly, "The instructor told me not to injure other cadets." The laughter softened, confusion creeping in. Then she added, "But he didn't say anything about self-defense," and for the first time, the room became quiet. For several seconds, no one moved. Training Hall 7 suddenly felt much larger than before. The laughter faded into an uncertain silence. The large cadet stared down at Lena, still smiling, but the confidence behind the expression had begun to thin. Self-defense. The word carried legal weight in the academy. Instructors used it constantly during training protocols. Self-defense justified force. Self-defense justified injury, sometimes worse. Still, no one truly believed the human meant it, because she was small, because she was quiet, because she had endured weeks without resistance, because nothing about her looked dangerous. The big cadet chuckled, low and dismissive. "You think this is self-defense?" He tapped her shoulder again, harder this time. Not enough to knock her off balance, but enough to make a point. "You're not in danger." Behind her, one of the others laughed nervously. The sound echoed strangely in the open hall. Lena did not move, did not step back, did not tense. If anything, she seemed to grow more still. Her breathing slowed, measured, controlled, almost mechanical. The large cadet noticed. His smile faded slightly. "You're serious?" It was not a question. She nodded once. A small movement, precise. Something changed in the air. No visible signal, no sound, but instinct moved faster than thought. Several cadets watching from the far side of the hall stepped backward without realizing why. Predator instincts did not need explanations. They only needed patterns. And something about the human's posture triggered those patterns. Balanced stance, relaxed shoulders, weight centered, stillness without hesitation, not frozen, ready. The big cadet stepped forward. One heavy step. The floor vibrated faintly. "I'm still standing here." Another step. "If you're defending yourself." He spread his arms slightly, mocking. "Go ahead." Lena tilted her head just slightly, studying distance, angles, timing. No one understood what they were seeing, except Sergeant Velk, who had just entered the observation corridor above. He stopped walking the moment he looked down, and did not move again. Below, Lena spoke quietly, almost politely. "You should step back." The big cadet laughed again, short, sharp. "No." She nodded once, as if confirming something. Later, Velk would describe that moment in a report. He would write, "Subject displayed behavioral transition from passive to operational state." At the time, no one noticed. The big cadet reached forward. He intended to grab her shoulder, nothing more, just enough to move her, just enough to prove dominance, just enough to end the moment. His hand never made contact. Movement happened too fast to follow. One instant, she stood still. The next, she wasn't where she had been. A step to the side, small, precise. His hand passed through empty space. Momentum carried him forward half a step, off balance, just slightly, just enough. Her hand closed around his wrist, not violently, not dramatically, just firmly, exactly at the joint. He barely had time to react. Then she turned, a simple rotation of her body, using his own mass, his own motion, his own balance. The big cadet left the ground, not high, not far, but undeniably airborne, and then he hit the floor, hard. The impact echoed across the hall. Air left his lungs in a shocked burst. The entire sequence lasted less than a second. No one moved. No one spoke. Several cadets simply stared, trying to understand what they had seen, because it had not looked powerful. It had not looked violent. It had barely looked like effort. But the largest cadet in their cohort was on the floor. And the human was still standing, exactly where she needed to be. Lena released his wrist immediately, stepped back, giving space, not aggressive, not advancing, just ready. The fallen cadet tried to rise, managed halfway, then stopped. Confusion, overriding anger. How? He didn't finish, because he did not know the question. One of the cadets behind Lena reacted first, with instinct instead of thought. He lunged forward, fast, clumsy compared to trained movement, but fast enough to be dangerous. His arms reached for her shoulders, trying to restrain, trying to overpower, trying to restore order. Sergeant Velk moved for the first time, above, too far away, too late. Below. Lena turned, not away, into the movement. Her foot shifted, weight dropped, center lowered. The cadet collided with her, or thought he did. Instead, he folded, his forward momentum redirected downward, his own speed working against him. His knees struck the floor first, then his hands, then his shoulder. Not slammed, placed, guided, controlled, neutralized. He tried to stand, could not. Pain locked the joint, not broken, not permanently damaged, but impossible to ignore. Lena stepped away immediately, breathing steady, expression unchanged. The entire hall was silent now. Even those who had not seen clearly understood enough. The human had dropped 2 cadets, in seconds, without visible effort, without anger, without hesitation. Above, Sergeant Velk exhaled slowly, exactly as expected, exactly what he had tried to prevent, exactly why the drills were separated. Below, the large cadet finally stood, slowly, carefully, eyes fixed on Lena. No laughter remained, only realization. "You could have hurt us." It came out quieter than he intended. Lena answered simply, "I didn't." He stared at her, understanding growing in pieces, uncomfortable pieces. "You planned that." A pause. Then, "No." She tilted her head slightly, almost apologetic. "I practiced." That answer spread through the room like cold air. Practiced, not improvised, not lucky, not accidental. The big cadet swallowed, his instincts finally catching up. "What are you?" It sounded less like an insult, more like a genuine question. Lena answered calmly, "Human." Above them, Sergeant Velk turned and activated his comm. "Medical standby." A pause, then, "And notify command." Below, no one noticed Lena take one slow breath and relax, just slightly, as if the difficult part was over. They were wrong. The difficult part had not even started yet. No one laughed anymore. Training Hall 7 had become unnaturally quiet. Even the distant hum of ventilation systems seemed louder than before. 3 cadets stood motionless. 2 more remained on the floor, slowly recovering, and in the center of the open space stood the smallest person in the room, Lena Mercer, human, still breathing evenly, still calm, still watching, not like a predator, not like prey. Like a professional waiting for instructions. The large cadet flexed his hand carefully. The wrist still worked. No structural damage, no fracture, just controlled pain, precise pain, engineered pain, enough to disable, not enough to injure permanently. That realization unsettled him more than the fall itself. Accidents cause damage. Wild strikes cause damage. Untrained fighters cause damage. But this had been measured, calculated, limited. "You said you were holding back," he said slowly. She nodded. "Yes. No pride, no threat, just fact." He gestured toward the 2 cadets still recovering. "This is holding back?" She considered the question seriously, then answered, "Yes, Silence again. Longer this time. He tried to imagine what not holding back would look like, and failed. Around them, more cadets had gathered. Word traveled quickly inside the academy, especially when something unusual happened, especially when that unusual thing involved a human. Several stood near the entrance now. None stepped inside. They watched from a safe distance, without realizing why. Above them, Sergeant Velk arrived on the observation platform. 2 security officers followed. Neither spoke. They simply looked down. Velk's expression did not change, but his voice dropped slightly. Too late. One officer frowned. To stop it. Velk shook his head. To prevent it. Below, the large cadet spoke again, more carefully this time. Why didn't you fight back before? The question hung in the air. Everyone wanted the answer, even those who pretended not to. Lena responded immediately. I was told not to. Simple, direct, final. By who? Instructors. Why? She paused, searching for words, or choosing them. Finally, because humans escalate situations. Several cadets exchanged uncertain looks. The large cadet frowned. What does that mean? She answered calmly. It means if someone pushes us. A small pause. We tend to push back harder. A cadet near the doorway muttered, That sounds normal. Several others nodded. Yes, normal, logical, expected. Lena looked toward the voice, not confrontational, just correcting. No. She said it quietly, but clearly. Not normal. The words settled heavily into the room. Something about the certainty in her voice made argument impossible. The large cadet shifted his weight, still uneasy, still trying to understand. Then why come here? Another simple answer. Orders. He blinked. Orders? Yes. He stared at her. You joined the academy because you were ordered to? She shook her head slightly. No. A pause. Then, I was assigned. That word landed differently. Assigned. Not volunteered. Not applied. Assigned. Above them, one of the security officers whispered, What does that mean? Velk answered quietly. It means she didn't choose this. Below, the large cadet asked the question none of them had considered before. What were you doing before the academy? For the first time, Lena hesitated, not long, but long enough to notice. Her eyes shifted slightly, thinking, measuring, deciding. Finally she answered, Training. The large cadet exhaled slowly, relief creeping in. Military? She nodded. Yes. That made sense. Federation cadets often had military backgrounds. Nothing unusual, nothing frightening, nothing. Then she added, Survival. The word did not sound dramatic. It sounded routine, which made it worse. Survival training? He asked. Yes. Where? She answered with the same calm tone she had used for everything else. Earth. Several cadets glanced at each other, still not understanding, still missing the point, until she added one final sentence, quiet, matter-of-fact, unavoidable. Against predators. The silence that followed felt different from the others, heavier, deeper, older. The large cadet swallowed. Simulations. Lena shook her head. Real ones. Above them, Sergeant Velk finally spoke into the comm again. Command needs to hear this. Below, the large cadet asked the last question he would ever ask lightly. What happens if you stop holding back? Lena answered immediately. No hesitation, no drama, no threat, just truth. Someone gets hurt. A pause, then, or worse. No one spoke, no one moved, no one laughed, because, for the first time, they understood something fundamental. Humans were not dangerous because they were aggressive. Humans were dangerous because they were controlled. And Lena Mercer, the quiet human cadet they had mocked for weeks, had just demonstrated something far more frightening than violence. She had demonstrated restraint. Above the training hall, Sergeant Velk closed the incident report with a single preliminary note. Recommendation. Update Academy guidance regarding human cadets. He paused, then added one final line. Subject displayed restraint consistent with trained combat personnel. A longer pause. Then, without restraint, outcome uncertain. Below, Lena picked up her dropped satchel, adjusted the strap, and prepared to leave, as if the lesson were finished, as if nothing important had happened, as if she were still just a quiet cadet. But none of the others moved aside quickly enough, because now they were afraid to stand too close. The official summons arrived less than an hour after the incident. It was not dramatic. No alarms, no escorts, no restraints. Just a message on Lena Mercer's terminal. Report to Administrative Office, 3B, immediately. She acknowledged the order within seconds, packed her equipment, and left her dormitory without hesitation, exactly on schedule, exactly as instructed. Administrative Office 3B was rarely used for ordinary disciplinary matters. It was quiet, windowless, neutral, designed to avoid distraction, designed to encourage honesty or compliance. Depending on perspective. Sergeant Velk was already inside when she arrived, so were two senior instructors and a Federation liaison officer. None of them looked surprised to see her. Velk nodded once. Cadet Mercer. Sergeant. She stood at attention, perfect posture, hands relaxed at her sides, waiting. The liaison officer activated the recording system. Cadet Lena Mercer, this is a formal incident review regarding events in Training Hall 7. She nodded. Understood. Velk spoke next. Did you initiate physical contact with other cadets? No. Did you use force? Yes. Why? Self-defense. Velk nodded once, expected answers, measured answers, accurate answers. The liaison officer leaned forward slightly. Cadet Mercer, were you in danger? She thought for a moment, then answered carefully. Potentially. One of the instructors frowned. Explain. She did, in the same calm voice. The cadets blocked my movement. Yes. They surrounded me? Yes. They initiated physical contact? Yes. A pause. Then she finished. I could not guarantee escalation would remain limited. The room grew quieter, because that was not the answer they expected. Not I felt threatened, not I was afraid, not I reacted. Instead, I could not guarantee escalation would remain limited. It sounded less like a student and more like a risk assessment. The liaison officer exchanged a glance with Velk. Velk gave the smallest possible nod. Cadet Mercer, the liaison officer said carefully, why were you instructed to avoid physical engagement? She answered immediately. Because of incident probability. Explain? She did not hesitate. If physical conflict begins, humans tend to escalate until the threat is neutralized. Silence. One instructor shifted uncomfortably. That applies to most species. Lena shook her head slightly. No. Then she explained. Most species disengage once dominance is established. Velk nodded slightly. Correct. Standard behavior patterns. Humans often continue. A pause. Then, until safety is confirmed. The liaison officer asked quietly, What does that mean? Lena answered simply, It means we don't stop when the other person stops. The words hung in the room, heavy, unpleasant, honest. Velk spoke. Why? She answered without emotion. Because threats recover. Silence again. One instructor exhaled slowly. Is that what you were trained to do? Yes. The liaison officer leaned forward. Clarify your training background. She paused. Longer than before, not refusing, selecting, filtering. Then, Human Defense Initiative Preparatory Program. Velk's expression tightened slightly. The liaison officer immediately accessed his data pad. Searching, scrolling, finding, then stopping. His eyes lifted slowly. You completed Phase 3 certification. Yes. The instructors exchanged uncertain looks. They did not recognize the term. Velk did. Phase 3 includes live environment training, Velk said quietly. Correct? Yes. The liaison officer spoke next. Define live environment, Lena answered. Uncontrolled terrain. Continue. Unrestricted hazards. Continue. Real predators. The instructor stared. One finally asked, Predators capable of killing you? She nodded. Yes. The room fell completely silent. The liaison officer asked quietly, How old were you? 14. Even Velk blinked once. The younger instructor spoke before he could stop himself. That's not possible. Lena looked at him, not offended, not defensive, just correcting. It is standard. The liaison officer spoke carefully. Standard for humans? Yes. Velk finally leaned back in his chair. Understanding confirmed. Concerns justified. Mistakes inevitable. The liaison officer scrolled further, then stopped again. His voice changed slightly. Cadet Mercer. A pause. Then, your file states you scored in the 92nd percentile for restraint. One instructor frowned. Restraint? Velk answered instead. For humans, that's high. The liaison officer looked at Lena again. Cadet Mercer, is it correct that you were recommended for academy placement because of behavioral control? Yes. The younger instructor stared. You mean she's here because she's safe? Velk answered quietly. No. A pause. Then, she's here because she's safer than the others. No one spoke after that, because suddenly the question none of them wanted to ask became unavoidable. If Lena Mercer, small, quiet, polite, controlled, was among the safest humans the Federation could send, what were the others like? The liaison officer finally ended the recording. Incident classified as justified self-defense. A pause. Then, no disciplinary action. Lena nodded. Understood? Velk stood, walked to the door, then stopped beside her. He spoke quietly, so only she could hear. You warned them. She nodded. Yes. Why? Her answer was immediate. That is protocol. Velk studied her for a moment, then asked one final question. What happens if humans skip the warning? Lena answered calmly. Then it becomes a report instead of a lesson. Velk did not ask anything else, because he already understood. And later that day, a quiet advisory memo circulated among Academy staff. Short, direct, impossible to misunderstand. Federation guidance. Update. Human cadets are not to be physically provoked. Behavioral compliance should not be mistaken for harmlessness. Humans demonstrate delayed escalation patterns. Final line. Lack of reaction does not indicate lack of capability. By the next morning, everyone knew. Officially, the Academy did not release details of disciplinary reviews. Unofficially, information spread faster than any sanctioned report. Training, Hall 7. 3 cadets down. No injuries classified as serious. Human involved. Self-defense ruling. No punishment. Those facts circulated within hours, but facts were never enough. Stories filled the gaps, and the stories grew with each retelling. Some said she had thrown the heavy-gravity cadet across the room. Others claimed she had broken bones, and they were covering it up. One version insisted security teams had arrived armed. Another claimed instructors had been watching the entire time and allowed it to happen. None of it was accurate. All of it contributed to the same conclusion. The human was dangerous. When Lena Mercer entered the mess hall that morning, conversation stopped. Not dramatically, not all at once, just in waves. Tables grew quieter as she passed. Eyes followed her, then looked away quickly when she noticed. Not hostility, not admiration, something else. Distance. She collected her meal exactly as usual. Protein portion, vegetables, grain substitute, measured, routine, predictable. She chose the same table she always used, near the far wall. Clear view of the exits, back protected. Without realizing it, several cadets at nearby tables shifted their positions slightly. making space, increasing distance. No one wanted to sit too close. Two cadets approached, slowly, carefully, not aggressive, not friendly either. The large cadet from Training Hall 7 stood among them. His wrist had already recovered. Human techniques caused pain without lasting damage. Another detail now widely discussed. He stopped several steps away. Not too close. Never too close again. "Cadet Mercer." She looked up. "Yes." A pause. He seemed uncertain how to begin. Eventually, he settled for honesty. "I wanted to apologize." Several nearby tables grew quieter, listening without appearing to. "You were correct." Another pause. "We pushed too far." She nodded once. Acknowledgement. Nothing more. He hesitated, then asked, "Were you really holding back?" "Yes." No hesitation, no exaggeration, no pride, just truth. The cadet nodded slowly, as if confirming something he had already decided to believe. Then he asked the question that had been spreading across the academy since the review. "Is it true you're considered restrained?" She answered immediately. "Yes." He exhaled slowly. "And that you're here because you're safer than most humans?" "Yes." That answer spread through the listening tables like a shock wave. Several cadets stiffened. Others looked at one another in silence. Because hearing rumors was one thing. Hearing confirmation was another. The cadet swallowed, then asked quietly, "What would an average human have done?" Lena thought about that, seriously, as she always did. Finally she answered, "They might have reacted sooner." The cadet nodded slowly, not relieved, because that answer was worse than the alternatives. He tried one more question. What would a dangerous human have done? This time, Lena did not answer immediately, not because she did not know, because she did, and accuracy required care. Finally she spoke, quietly, calmly. "You would not be asking that question." No one at the nearby tables moved, no one spoke. The cadet nodded once, understanding complete, apology accepted, lesson learned. He and his companion left without another word. Lena finished her meal in silence, exactly as always, exactly on schedule. But the academy had changed. Corridors that once felt crowded now opened slightly when she approached. Cadets stepped aside sooner, without being asked, without making eye contact, without delay. No one blocked her path anymore, not once. Training sessions changed as well, not officially. Schedules remained the same. Exercises remained the same, but spacing increased. Partner assignments rotated differently. Cadets avoided drawing her name. Instructors did not object. And Sergeant Velk watched everything, as always, but now with less concern, because the dangerous phase had passed. The misunderstanding phase, the testing phase, the inevitable phase. One afternoon, a junior instructor approached him, quietly, concerned. "Is this good?" Velk did not look away from the training floor. "Yes." "They're afraid of her." "Yes." "Shouldn't we address that?" Velk considered the question, then answered, "They're afraid of reality." The instructor frowned. "What reality?" Velk gestured toward the floor below, where Lena Mercer completed a strength drill with steady precision, controlled movement, perfect pacing, no wasted effort. The reality that humans survive environments that kill other species. The instructor watched silently, still uncertain. Velk continued. They needed to learn the difference between harmless and controlled. A pause. Then, "Now they know." The instructor asked one final question, quietly, carefully. "Should we be worried?" Velk answered without hesitation. "No." Then added, "As long as they remember the warning." Below, Lena finished her exercise set, logged the results, cleaned the equipment, returned it to storage, exactly as regulations required. Just another cadet, just another day. But now, everyone understood something they had missed before. The quiet human cadet had never been weak, never been harmless, never been helpless. She had simply been patient, The lecture was not scheduled in the public timetable. Cadets were notified individually. Attendance mandatory, subject classification, behavioral risk awareness, human cadets. That alone ensured a full room. The main lecture hall filled quietly. No casual conversations, no laughter, no speculation spoken out loud. Everyone knew what the session was about. Even before Sergeant Velk entered, he did not bring presentation equipment, no visual aids, no data charts, just a data pad he never activated. He stood at the front of the hall and looked across the room. Rows of cadets, predators, herbivores, armored species, heavy gravity species, venomous species, war-trained species, all waiting. Velk spoke, slowly, directly. You made a mistake. No introduction, no formalities, just truth. You assumed the human cadet was weak. Silence. You assumed quiet behavior meant harmless behavior. More silence. You assumed physical size determined threat level. Several cadets shifted uncomfortably. Velk continued. Those assumptions are common. A pause. Then, they are also wrong. He began walking slowly across the front of the room. Measured steps. Heavy. Deliberate. Humans are not the strongest species in the Federation. True. Several species exceeded human strength. They are not the fastest. Also true. Many species moved faster. They are not the most heavily armored. Obvious. Some cadets had natural plating thicker than composite armor. Velk stopped, turned, looked directly at them. But humans are the most persistent. Silence deepened, because persistence sounded harmless, until it was explained. Velk did exactly that. Most species disengage when injured. True. Standard biological behavior. Most species disengage when exhausted. True again. Most species disengage when they believe the conflict is decided. Also true. Velk's voice dropped slightly. Humans do not. No one moved. They continue until the threat is gone. Several cadets remembered Lena's words. Threats recover. Velk continued. This behavior is not aggression. A pause. Then, it is survival. He walked again, slowly. Humans evolved in an environment where stopping early meant dying later. He stopped near the center of the hall. That lesson became instinct. No one spoke. Velk looked across the room again. You encountered a restrained human. The word carried weight now, real weight. A human selected specifically for behavioral control. Several cadets shifted again, because they knew what came next, or feared it. Velk confirmed it. Cadet Mercer scored in the 92nd percentile for restraint. A pause, long enough to settle. That means 92% of trained humans demonstrate less control than she does. Silence became absolute. Velk let it remain, because the numbers spoke clearly enough. Finally, a cadet near the back raised a hand. Velk nodded. What would happen if a human lost control? The question everyone feared. The question no one wanted answered. Velk did not hesitate. In a controlled environment? A pause. Then, injuries. He considered a moment longer, then added, in an uncontrolled environment? Another pause. Longer. Heavier. Fatalities. No one asked another question. Velk walked back to the front, stopped, looked across the room one last time. You were fortunate. Several cadets swallowed. You provoked a human who followed protocol. Velk's voice remained calm, but final. She warned you? Everyone remembered the words. Do you want me to stop holding back? Velk continued. Human warnings are not threats. A pause. Then, they are opportunities. No one moved. Velk finished. If a human warns you... A pause. One last pause. Listen. He turned off the hall lights. Lecture complete. Dismissed without another word. Cadets left quietly. No conversation, no laughter, no debate, just thought. Heavy thought. Later that night, a junior instructor asked Velk one final question. Was she really dangerous? Velk answered without looking up from his report. No. The instructor hesitated, confused. But you said, Velk finished the thought for him. I said she was restrained. A pause. Then Velk added the final line to the incident archive, a note that would remain attached to the case for future cadets. Short, direct, unmistakable. Cadet Mercer demonstrated exemplary control. A longer pause. Then the final sentence. If a human warns you, listen. And below that, Velk added one final annotation, not required, but necessary. If a human does not warn you, a pause, then, you are already too late.